well, behind us is a picture of one of our cover crops. That is a cover crop on preventive planting. We've had our best success with cover crops as a full season cover crop, and we've utilized prevent plant for an opportunity to do that. And our prevent plant mix here, we like to incorporate all of our cash crops in a mix. So all of our cover crops are planted as mixes. And we include all of our cash crops in those mixes, but we use this primarily to enhance soil function and provide habitat for beneficial insects for natural pest control. So in this mix behind us is golden omega flax, yellow field peas, yellow mustard. There's a heritage wheat in there. There's Piper Sudan grass, there's safflower, and there's buckwheat. And we primarily use this green and growing cover to keep our nitrogen demand higher than our supply. Right there you go.
So this is about where our farm is in central North Dakota. You're supposed to get annual rainfall of 14 inches. We haven't seen that in a while. Annual snowfall of 40 inches. We have roughly 134 frost-free days. And we've been in a bit of a drought the last couple of years. And last year in the 2024 season, we had 10 inches of rain, April 29th through the beginning of July, which is exactly when we should have been seeding the crop. So we ended up making the decision based on what's best for our soil system. And we had a fair amount of prevent plant acres last year. And our goal here, our goal is to manage soil for health. And we do that using the soil health principles and managing our soil for maximizing biodiversity, minimizing disturbance, maximizing living roots, and maximizing soil cover.
When we are using our cover crops, we're using our cover crops as a carrier for biology. So in every one of those seeds, just a seed in a cover crop mix, there's approximately 8 billion microbes within a seed. So we are enhancing that even further. We brew a biological bioprimer to put onto our cover crop seeds, to use those seeds as a carrier to distribute it out on the landscape. And we're brewing that bioprimer from native soil on our own farm. So we're taking indigenous microorganisms that may be missing in the landscape through farming practices, soil erosion, degradation, that sort of thing, and giving them the opportunity to be displaced back on the landscape and let the cover crop grow, divide, multiply those microorganisms in that environment. And this is all farm-made stuff.
Maximizing soil cover. The goal here is to prevent the soil and water erosion and to create habitat for both insects and wildlife. And so the pictures that you can see here, we don't want any soil blowing off of our farm. That's not a great day for the resource. That's what Jay Fear would say. And we want to be capturing carbon with as much green and growing as we can for the frost-free period. And I have pictures there of pheasant eggs hatching, and all of the soil cover contributes to habitat for insects and wildlife.
Maximize diversity. So we can do that with our microorganisms on our seed. We maximize diversity with the different plant species. Like I said, all of our cover crops are planted in mixes, which also enhances the biodiversity of all the beneficial insects that we're seeing out on our land. We do a lot of testing just simply by observation. You know, we start asking questions. We start seeing the diversity of the wildlife coming back on the landscape. And the white-tailed deer population, you start asking questions. Why are the does having triplets? Why aren't they open anymore? So that's, it's really eye-opening when you see that stuff start to happen. And you can't deny that fact when it's right in front of your eyes and you see it. But we are seeing moose come back to the landscape, pheasant populations, partridge populations, jackrabbits have exploded. You know, a lot of that has been, you know, the habitat is back, the food sources are back, all those insects are back to support all those populations.
Maximizing living roots. We're trying to capture carbon using our cover crops during the frost-free periods, whether that's after an annual crop or during a full season cover crop. And it's feeding soil biology and cycling nutrients and making sure that we have something feeding the soil biology for as long as we can. The picture on the bottom right, that was our 2024 cover crop, full season cover crop. And that went all the way till I think November 18th. So it was a good year. Sometimes we plant the seed and it doesn't germinate. And sometimes you plant the seed and you get an extended season. So it's really hard to know. But as I've been told, the seed won't grow in the bin. So we do try to get it out onto the landscape when we see it.
And you can go back there and you can see that middle picture versus the frost terminated picture. You know, all we really need is that 4 to 6 weeks. You know, we can do a lot with 4 to 6 weeks worth of growth looking at those roots on those plants. All right, minimize disturbance. So we try to do as little as possible out there. We're trying to master the art of doing nothing, but we've got to be out there doing something. So we've used different methods to get cover crops established. We have used the disc drill, which has really been challenging in drought conditions. Post-harvest, we've had little success with that. We've seen, you know, equipment wear, some diesel fuel wasted hours on the tractor, that sort of thing. We're trending more towards lower cost alternatives. Like in the middle, I built an overseeder. That's a 100-foot broadcast seeder. Just a broadcast small seeded crops out there. We're broadcasting yellow mustard, flax, things we have on the farm, things we can do relatively cheap. If you don't get a rain, it doesn't work, but you can go from 0 to hero with a 1-inch rain event. 1-inch rain event that works really great. We're also incorporating on the far right there, that's a biennial clover within a cash crop system with a low-level companion seeded with the cash crop. So that's an oat seeded with a yellow mustard with a biennial sweet clover. We're able to harvest the crop. The sweet clover is still in a vegetative state. Just using the volunteer oats and the volunteer mustard out the back of the combine to grow on the ground to establish a fall cover crop to take us into the frost period.
So we've been talking about maximizing our prevent plant, right? So if we find ourselves in a situation where our soils are not fit to be on with our equipment, we will utilize prevent plant gear and take leaps and bounds ahead in soil for health. And we can prevent soil and water erosion. We can create habitat for insects and wildlife. We can cycle carbon, feed soil biology, and build more water stable soil aggregates. And that's a big change from where we were just 12 years ago if we had a prevent plant year and we were all chem fallow. So this is our way of getting something green and growing and feeding the soil biology in a non-cropping year and getting a diverse mix of plants to feed the soil biology and be photosynthesizing for the frost-free period. So in the upper part there in the middle, that was nature's cover crop. There was weeds growing there. And in a book that was mentioned earlier, the
1938 USDA Soils of Men. I have the book. I've read it.
we were familiar.
I was very familiar with that.
But in that cover crop, it mentioned weeds, right? And we're
bottom right is weeds too. That's what that looked like prior to planting.
Right. We're not suggesting you let your fields go to weeds, but weeds do build soil.
When you get Mother Nature backs you into a corner, you always have to be thinking 10 steps ahead. What's going to happen when I get out there and do this right now? What's going to be the repercussions of that? So that was one time where we just kind of sat on our hands and let the weeds work for us for about 6 weeks. We got about 6 weeks worth of growth out of them before we terminated them and planted them into a mix.
And then that's in the middle of the bottom middle is what the field looked like during the growing season after it was planted in July.
But you look at the middle picture that we planted and the weeds Mother Nature put there on the other side, and they look pretty similar, really, when looking across the landscape.
So we used we like cover crops as an opportunity to feed and protect and manage for soil biology, soil for health and resiliency. Feeding and fueling soil biology, protecting soil aggregates and organic matter, right? Using the principles for soil health. And it's fast and furious, but I think we made it through there. And this is our information. You can kind of see it there. And if we have any questions or time for that, we're here to answer.